This vlog is brought to you by legitmtg.com. Free shipping on orders $2 or more. That was about the most uninspired promo I could probably think of giving. Hi everyone, it's me, Josh. I'm here with Andy. Say hi, Andy.
Hi guys.
Andy, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Modern Masters 3 and some of our favorite picks for cards and some of the cards that did not quite make the set.
Now, I made slides for our favorites, our top 10s. That's what I asked Andy to do, is make our top 10 favorite list. And we're both pretty far off on our top 10 favorites, but we're very close to our top 10 should have been in the sets. Except I think I vary on one thing. So, Andy, we're going to take a look at your top 10 first. So let me go ahead and switch scenes. And there we go, Andy. Let's talk about your top 10. We've got a couple uncommons, couple rares, couple mythics. Out of all these 10 cards, what card do you think is going to have the biggest impact of being reprinted in the modern format?
Reprinted for this set specifically, or just the format overall?
For the format overall.
The format overall, I'm going to say the fetch lands.
And why would you say the fetch lands?
I would say the fetch lands because they're bringing in fetch lands at a rarity, and it puts more of these into the market at a cheaper rate. So it gives people a chance to competitively get into Modern instead of just being that intro player that's only playing, say, Gates and common duels that come into play tapped. It makes a new player's mana base easier to purchase.
Yeah, that's one of the bummers about Modern, is the mana is so good that, and I saw this on Twitter, I don't remember who said it, that you're excited to buy a playset of something like Liliana the Veil or Gristlebrand, because that feels like you're putting a new engine in your car. Like, that's a milestone.
It is.
But when you're buying stuff like Misty Rainforest and Arid Mesas for your mana base, that feels less like a milestone. It's like you're putting gas into the tank of a car that has no engine. It's incredibly unexciting. So
I can see where you're coming from there, but I can also say, like, if you buy something like a playset of Lilianas or a playset of Snapcasters, you're locked into playing that card in that color or in a 1, 2, or 3 color combination. The fetch lands you can use anywhere. Modern, Legacy, Commander. They have multiple uses, and you don't have to play. You can play as many fetches in a deck as you want, and I mean, obviously 4 is the limit, but they just have more versatility, and I think they're easier to get your hands on.
Alright, well, let's talk about the rest of your list. You've got Abrupt Decay up here. You've got Path to Exile. Inquisition of Kozilek. Why do you feel that Inquisition is an important reprint?
I think that Inquisition was an important reprint because the black decks love to have discard, and having that turn 1 or turn 2 Inquisition in games is just almost, it could be a game changer, because you can get that important threat out of your opponent's hand really quick, and then you get a visual knowledge of what they have in hand, so you can pretty much plan to play around them for the next upcoming turns.
That sounds fair. It's really weird seeing Damnation on your list, considering it sees, like, 0 play.
It sees no play, I agree, but it's been that card that I think has been dying to get reprinted for years and years and years, and they just haven't tried to do it.
Oh no, they've tried.
I'm trying to think of when they. I'm trying to think of when they did it.
Sam Stoddard has wrote an article about Damnations being reprinted. I believe it was Sam. And he gave a couple of instances where Damnation was in the set list and then got removed. Like, it was in Over Languish. It was in the From the Vault's Annihilation. And I believe it was in one more set, but it may have just been those two.
The only set I see it in, just looking it up, it was in Planar Chaos, obviously.
Right.
And the only other time it was released was a Judge promo and a DCI promo all those years ago when they did DCI promos still.
Andy, you misunderstood me. You said that they hadn't tried to reprint it.
Oh, tried to reprint it.
Yeah, and I said that they did try to reprint it because Sam Stoddard wrote an article.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've tried, but it eventually just turned into a meme. Alright, let's move on. We've hit
on the go.
We've hit the top row. Let's finish off the middle row with Cavern of Souls. You know, that card was quietly very expensive.
It quietly crept up just because you had decks that you had like these good solid aggro decks like Merfolk, or when I think maybe when Standard was around, I think you had Humans.
Yeah.
And the card just overperformed.
Cavern sees fringe play.
Sure.
Especially a modern, because you have Aether Vial, which is good, and Cavern pretty much gives you the 8th copy of Aether Vial in terms of uncounterability. It sees some play in the Sliver deck, it sees some play in the Ally deck, Merfolk, of course. But it's just one of those cards that when you go to buy a copy from legitmtg.com, wink wink, and you see what his price tag is, you're like, oh, this is unfortunate. I like the art on the new Cavern. I think it's pretty neat.
I do like the art on it too.
And I appreciate the reprints because, well, it makes cards cheaper for me. So we'll go ahead and move on from Cavern. We've got Blood Moon, Snapcaster, Liliana, and the Fetch Lands. So, that is Andy's top 10. We're going to go ahead and look at my top 10. And, well, we match up on Gristlebrand and Blood Moon. Personally, Blood Moon is one of those cards that I enjoy casting, and I have 2 paper decks in progress that need as many Blood Moons as possible. So Blood Moon getting reprinted and as a rare makes me happy, because that should help drop the price considerably. Now, from where we don't match up, we're talking about stuff like Molten Rain. I like casting Molten Rain, and I think the art on the new version is wonderful. Now, the Goblin Guide, I can't really say the same for. It's got new art.
I think they kind of gave up halfway when they were drawing that card.
Well, no, it's I believe, and again, this is something that I saw on Twitter. That is a female goblin from Zendikar, according to the style guides and art books that have come out. I'm not hating on Goblin Guide because it's suddenly female. I'm hating on Goblin Guide because that's not what I think a goblin looks like. I mean,
At all.
it's kind of like an olive green, and I'm used to magic goblins being a almost lime green, but not lime the inside of the fruit, lime the peel. So a darker lime green. I don't know, whatever. Nothing about this card screams I have haste. It's just a guy. It's a goblin pointing at a map, so it's pretty much me on my horde tune trying to figure out where I'm going in Warcraft. It's a goblin with a map. I mean, it's one of those cards that, again, it shouldn't have ever reached the $30 mark, and having another version of Goblin Guide will help players who are entering the modern format who decide to go in burn.
It is one of the cheaper builds, so
Yeah, there's a lot of variety in the different burn decks. You can go Naya, you can go Boros, you can go Gruul. So there's a lot of variety in what you can do with burn and modern. And again, burn may not be the ideal starting point for some, but another starting point, if you're not looking for aggro red, could possibly be elves. Craterhoof Behemoth was, again, one of those cards that shouldn't have been as expensive as it was, but because it saw play in Legacy and Modern, and it was a set from years ago, it just got bumped up, and it kept getting bumped, and it kept getting bumped, and here we are, to where people are needing Craterhoof Behemoth reprints to be able to afford elves in Modern. Now, Temporal Mastery wasn't as high up there, but if you're looking to play turns, now suddenly one of the more expensive cards in the deck is Cryptic Command and Time Warp, and Temporal Mastery should go down. We've got Gifts Ungiven on the list. We've got Linvala, Keeper of Silence, which is, again, another one of those fringe cards that just needed a reprint because, wow, how did it get to this?
Mm-hmm.
Serum Visions, which I believe is just a good, solid card that, like Path to Exile and Inquisition, should be reprinted as often as possible. I wrap up my top 10 with Tarmogoyf because, well, what would a Modern Master set be without Tarmogoyf? So, we've each hit our top 10. What do you think your top 10 is? If you want to, go ahead and leave a message in the comments. That would be great. So, Andy, we've hit our top 10s. Let's talk about the cards that didn't make it. We've got some stuff like Grave Titan and off the top of my head, cards that didn't make it, like Thoughtseizes.
I was gonna say Thoughtseizes and Kitchen Finks and Ensnaring Bridge.
Now, mind you, stuff like Ensnaring Bridge and Chalice of the Void had masterpiece reprints, so they may not have wanted to reprint them again so soon.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go ahead and talk about the list, the top 10 list you sent me yesterday in regards to the 10 that we missed out, because we agreed pretty much with each other outside of me, and I'll go ahead and say that my one disagreement was I'm greedy and I wouldn't have printed Tri-Lands in the set. I would have, or actually no, I would have printed Tri-Lands. I would have downshifted the common, and instead of the guild gates, because if you don't have Maze's End, I think it kind of takes away one of the more fun aspects of getting the gates. is I would have really just stuck at the speculators and reprinted the shock lands as uncommons.
That would have been a hit.
It would have been, but getting shock lands and fetch lands in the same set would have made the modern mana bases so incredibly accessible to the players of the formats. And
yeah.
I know that I don't have this file downloaded. Hold on. 8. And sorry about that. I lost a file that we needed, and we went ahead and paused the recording so me and Andy could get our heads together. So Andy, I'll let you talk about the list of cards that we thought should have been reprinted in Modern Masters, but did not get the reprints.
Alright. These are my top 10 picks for honorable mentions that have not made it into Modern Masters 3. Just go down the list and give you a brief reasoning for each one. First one on my list is Kitchen Finks. This card has been in Modern since Modern started. I think I've seen it in at least one deck every part of the year. This card has been everywhere. This card is just really good for what it does. It gains you essentially 4 life in most cases, and it's a 3 power body for 3 mana. Easy to cast.
Alright, carry on.
Second on the list, Ensnaring Bridge.
Now, the viewer will notice that as we talk about our list, there's going to be a lot of masterpieces on here. And I think that's kind of why WotC did not make the decision to reprint some of these, because it kind of devalues the masterpiece. But having stuff like Ensnaring Bridge, and this is as a guy who owns 2 masterpiece bridges, there's no reason an 8th edition card should be so expensive. Carry on, sir.
I agree with you. That's why there's a couple of my choices on this list are more of a let's put more in the format so people have more access to these cards. And I completely understand that some of them are masterpieces, but I'm not going to go walk down the street and buy a couple packs and be like, oh hey, I opened it up 3 packs.
Yeah,
it could happen, but I'm not that lucky. Third on my list, Mox Opal.
You know, I personally think this one wasn't on the list for reasons that we'll probably talk about next week. I believe Mox Opal's getting banned.
Just too good. Just way too good now.
I strongly believe that there's going to be more changes to Modern with next week's ban announcements.
Ooh.
And I think Mox Opal is going to be one of those cards. Alright, go on.
Next on my list, good old Spell Snare.
You know, with the amount of powerful uncommons that we did get in the set, we got Inquisition, we got Path, we got Serum Visions. Giving blue a second powerful uncommon may have been a little too much. But yeah, Spell Snare is one of those cards that...
I feel like Spell Snare could have competed with Serum Visions for the uncommon slot.
It could have.
But then again, I haven't seen much Spell Snare play from what I've seen in the last couple weeks. I think most of the decks are shifting over to Spell Pierce, just because it's a cheaper spell.
Well, I mean, they're the same mana cost. It's
just good. Shows how much Modern I play.
All right, carry on with your list before.
Let's keep going. Scapeshift. Next on my
That's
list.
a good one. That sees a lot of play in Bring to Light list and in Red Green Valley Cut list. And again, it's another one of those cards that's just been gone for so long that it's like, oh wow, this is, oof, this is a rough idea to buy.
I love the thought of always wanting to get into Modern and play, and when I start pricing out decks and I see cards that are $40, $50, $60 a piece, it makes my head spin.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be the guy that says I told you so, but again, you'd have a paper Modern collection if you and Will had listened to me. But I'm just a frog. I'm just a frog sipping tea. So what do I know?
Thought you were a truck.
No, I am not a truck. I have been adamant in that before. Man, not to get off topic, but we're gonna get off topic here. Remember when I almost got kicked out of the casino?
Yeah.
Because I asked the dealer to ask me about a truck.
It was pretty fantastic. I miss those days.
That dealer was like, the look of sheer terror on her face as our little in-group laughed at that joke was... she did ask us to leave. More specifically me, but then told us she was joking. But still, it was good times. Anyways, let's get back on task here. Let's finish up your list.
To finish up my list, let's go over to the next spot. I have Chalice of the Void.
Fair.
This card has been picking up steam since I think the format started. But as the format goes on, you see all these cheap decks. Like you have Burn, and most of their cards in their deck are 1/2, maybe a 3-drop somewhere in there.
You have the Curio deck that's mainly 0 drops.
Yeah.
As they print more cards, Chalice of the Void just gets better and better. Because it's stopping more and more stuff, you know?
And it's not easy to deal with either.
That is true, because sometimes you'll set it to a number and they'll draw their answer and they'll be like, oh no, it gets countered by Chalice.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Next on my list, I have Engineered Explosives.
That is another good one.
Another good card that I feel is getting better and better the more they print stuff. Going down the line here, I have Aether Vial.
Yeah, Aether Vial would have been good, but again, with the Cavern of Souls.
Yeah. I was going to say, Vial was also a masterpiece, wasn't it?
Yes.
Ooh.
I think another thing that modern master sets could do is kind of quietly seed good playable legacy cards that are still modern legal, and maybe push people, not push, maybe just gently nudge them towards exploring legacy as well, because you're getting reprints of the fetches, you're getting the Shocklands were in Modern Masters 2, right?
I think they were.
Masters 1. I don't remember which set they were in. They may not have been reprinted at all. But with Return to Ravnica, Shocklands are still kind of lowish. And Shocklands are good dual land replacements. They're not ideal, but when you can buy one Hollowed Fountain at less than 1/10 of the cost of a Tundra, then, well, you kind of have to play your hand there sometimes. So having stuff like Vial, and Snapcaster Mage, and Liliana, and stuff like that does kind of give a small nudge towards legacy play. Anyways, go on. I'm sorry.
You're fine. My next one is Maelstrom Pulse.
That's a good one.
I kind of expected to see a big removal spell in the set. Decay's always good. Decay is just Decay. It's uncounterable, and it answers a good chunk of the modern format.
It does indeed.
My last choice on this list we've already discussed, and I might change this answer because it originally was Maze's End, but
Maze's End.
like we discussed earlier, like just having that little side strategy in a limited format seems like it could be fun on its own, but when it doesn't make it in the list, it's like why did they put gates in?
Yeah,
like I understand mana fixing. They put a lot of mana fixing in for this set. It's gonna be a fun set to draft because you've got tri-lands, you've got gates.
Yeah, the gates could have been literally any other 2-color lands though. The idea of gates just does push the inclusion of Maze's End. I sneezed. Alright, well, those are some good cards that you have listed that should have been reprinted. I will go ahead and add, aside the Shocklands at Uncommon, which is the fever dream of a madman, Valakut the Molten Pinnacle is a card that I wanted to see in and had high hopes for during the name and number crunch of the spoiler season when it became apparent that there was one land left and it could have fit in that slot, but it was also probably going to be Shimmering Grotto, and it turned out to be Shimmering Grotto. And one card that I cannot for the life of me understand got reprinted, because again, and this comes from the name and number crunch, there was a spot for Chalice of the Void in the spoiler list, and I'm like, can we please get a Chalice reprint? Because I need a lot of Chalices too. And I see the full spoiler list, and I scroll down, I'm excited, I'm going to see Chalice, and it's going to be great, and then I see Damping Matrix, and I'm like, what? The Damping Matrix. Give me a second, there's a train coming. 5. Alright, the train for the most part has stopped its whistle blowing. Andy, we've talked about our top 10 list for cards that did get reprinted, and we've talked about some cards that we would have liked to see be reprinted. Now let's talk about some cards that we hope leave the format. Next week is a banning announcement, and while it's probably going to have more to do with Standard than it will Modern, I do believe that there's going to be some movement on the Modern list. As I mentioned earlier, I believe Mox Opal will be leaving the format, and I'll go ahead and, to add to my prediction of Mox Opal leaving the format, we're going to see 2 other cards join and another card leaving. And the 2 cards joining, I'm going to say, will be Bloodbraid Elf and Jace the Mind Sculptor. Bloodbraid Elf is paying for the sins of Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman was clearly too strong for Modern, and with Jace the Mind Sculptor also coming off, it gives decks an incentive to not play Jace. You have it, like when Jace was first in Standard, Bloodbraid Elf was what kept it in check, and with Jace coming back into Modern, Bloodbraid Elf would help keep it in check. So we've talked about Mox Opal leaving, we've talked about Jace and Bloodbraid Elf coming in. The other card that I think could be going, and it pains me to say this because I don't think the card needs to be banned at all, is Simeon's Spirit Guide. It's just the Lotus Petal that can sometimes attack for 2, and it sees a lot of play in the Tier 2 and the Fringe decks. But that Lotus Petal does lead to some unpleasant playing experiences, like powering out a turn 1 Blood Moon, or getting Gristlebrand into play on turn 2. So I can see WotC's desire to want to slow the format down a little bit, So, in short, for me, leaving the format, Opal, Spirit Guide. Entering the format, Bloodbraid, Jace. Your turn. Andy?
Yes, I like those. I like those ideas. I like those picks. I like those ideas you have. I do agree that Simeon Spirit Guide is just one of those cards that can make the game go out of control. Mox Opal, I also feel is just too good for what it does, and the fact that you can start with multiple opals in a grip and power out something big on turn 1 or turn 2.
It would be problematic for Affinity, and it would probably hurt the Eggs deck a lot, and it would also hurt the Cheerios deck. The thing about Opal and Spirit Guide is that they're both in decks that don't dominate the metagame, but have the ability to be in those decks that can dominate the metagame. So they would be more like safety bans, but they're also not making up a huge part of the metagame. It's not like we're looking at a Splinter Twin level of play for Affinity, or we're looking at a Splinter Twin level of play for the red-white control deck. It's just that these cards do things that break the rules of Magic, and that's, I believe, unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, next week, our episode will talk about the banned and restricted list and the changes that have happened to it and the weekend of play. I believe now is a good stopping point, Andrew.
All right, I agree.
All right, well, until next time, I am Joshua, and he is Andy. And we'll see you later.